So I plan to join a readathon and read a few nostalgic books. Hi guys, my name is Ezra and welcome back to my channel. So November has not been great for me. I don't think I read a lot of books this month and the month is almost over. So I decided to have a TBR for December and join the romance readathon. Well, the romance takeover readathon. So I'm going to be sharing a few books that I plan to read, even though I know I won't be able to read all the books, but I figured that with a lot of options, I can pick and choose which ones I'll read for December. So let's start with the Romance Takeover Readathon. This readathon runs from November 29th to December 11th and is hosted by Jen from the book Refuge, Nicole at Who Picked This Book, Izzy at Happy for Now, Tamika at Library of Tomes, Beautifully Bookish Bethany, Bree at In Love and Words. So I'm going to leave their links in the description box below and you can watch their TBR videos and give them a follow if you have not followed them yet. So I'm really excited for this readathon because they basically let us choose whatever book we want. They do have a list of prompts, but they also gave us a blank bingo card. So I did make my own bingo card, and some of the books that I picked actually will fall under multiple squares, but I did try to pick at least one book for each square. So I know some of the books will cover multiple squares, but at least I know that I'll make at least a bingo, and hopefully I'll make a blackout, but I'm not really hoping because I know I won't be able to. So anyway, I will be sharing the books that I will be reading specifically for this readathon. So let's start. So the first square that I have for you is a book that's been on my TBR for 6 months or more. I specifically picked Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert because I have not read this book yet, and this has been on my TBR for a while. Actually, I received a copy of this book from Avon, and I still haven't read it. So I got this before the book was published. I believe it was published last year, and I still haven't read this book, and I've heard a lot of good things. Now the thing is, I've never read a Talia Hibbert book until last night when was it last night or the other night? I think it was the other night when I finished Mating the Huntress, and it was amazing. I was not expecting it to be very steamy and very good for a novella, and it felt like a full book even when it was a novella. So that made me excited to read this book. I have a feeling that I will be enjoying this book. So I know I have a finished copy of this book. I'm not sure if I will be picking up the audiobook for this one, but definitely either read this or get the audiobook. Then the next square is actually read a historical romance. Then the other square is read an audiobook. So I actually have a few historical romance books that I've added for my TBR for this challenge specifically. So this square is actually like a bonus square for me. And it's the same with the audiobook because, as I've said, I'm going to be reading audiobooks for some of these books if I can get them. So those books, read a historical romance and read an audiobook, those are my bonus squares. So definitely majority of the books will fall under these squares. So the next book that I plan to read that will fall under the read a diverse book square is Simmer Down by Sarah Smith. This is an Own Voices contemporary romance. This is a rom-com and it involves food trucks. Sarah Smith is a Filipino author, so I'm really excited. I have had this book on my radar. I still haven't read it. I'm planning to get the audiobook, although if Sarah is going to use another or a few Filipino words here, I have a feeling that the audiobook will just turn me off because the narrators never seem to get to pronounce the words right, and that's always been a problem for me. So I actually probably will just get the ebook and read it instead of getting the audio and be disappointed. So that's another of my Read a Diverse book. I have another book that can fall under the diverse book square and the age gap romance square. So that book is Mango Summer by Agay Llanera, and this is actually a romance class book, and this is another own voices romance written by a Filipino. So if you guys don't know, romance class books are actually books published in English by Filipino authors. I'm really excited. I actually bought this book a couple years ago and I still haven't read it. It's pretty short, and this is a best friend's brother romance. So the heroine here is actually the older. So actually this book can fill out 3 squares because I also included the older woman romance, and this is also a diverse romance, and this is also an age gap romance. So if I read this book, I'm gonna I'm gonna fill out 3 squares right off the bat. So I can't wait to read this book. I probably will read this first. We'll see. All right, the next square that I have is Buddy Read a Book, and the book that I picked for this one is My Fake Rake by Eva Lee. I'm going to be reading this book, Buddy Read this book, for the Rake Appreciation Society Book Club, hosted by Jen at the Book Refuge and Crystal at Crystal's Bookish Life. So as you can see, I received this book as an ARC from Avon Romance, and I actually haven't read it yet. I'm excited to read this though. I have to admit that I haven't been reading historical romance in the last few years, and I've only been recently picking it up because I was just reading a lot of contemporary. So for the life of me, I just couldn't read historical romance. I have no idea why, but I'm really happy that I am starting to read more because historical romance is actually my favorite romance genre. So all right, so I know I said that I have an older woman romance box, so I already mentioned that. Now I also have another pick for the age gap romance, and that is When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn. I've actually kind of read this book. I can't remember anything about it. I think I gave this 3 stars, but I want to reread this because this is Francesca and Michael's book, and a lot of readers are saying that this book is really good. Also, the Bridgerton series is coming, so I've been trying to catch up and read the Julia Quinn books, well, the Bridgerton books that I haven't read yet. And I've read this book, but for the life of me, couldn't remember anything about this book, so I'm gonna pick this up hopefully soon. I already purchased the audiobook for this book, so I'm gonna go with the audiobook for this one. All right, the next box is actually like a bonus box, another bonus box for me, and it's Attend a Live Reading Sprint. So I'm going to be attending the very first one on November 29th, and I plan to attend another one. So because of COVID, and I'm in LA County, and the cases are rising pretty exponentially in the last couple weeks or so, and we have been asked to work from home. So I'm a little bit lucky that I'm able to work from home during this time. So I think I'll be able to hop on and join other reading sprints throughout the readathon. So I think I'm going to be able to cross out this square pretty easily. Now, the next box that I have is Read Outside Your Comfort Zone. So this year I've actually started reading a lot of dark romances, and I have had a lot of romance readers recommend to me other books, other dark romance books, and I can't wait to read them. I actually picked 2 books for this box. I'm not sure which one I will be reading yet, but I definitely will try to read one of them. But since I don't know which one I want to read, I'm just adding these 2 books here. That first book that I picked is Bullseye by Monica James and Lord of London Town by Tilly Cole. So both of these books are on KU. I'm pretty happy that both of them are available on KU because I have a KU subscription and I don't really use it all that much. So this is another way for me to use this subscription and not let it go to waste. Also, I've read Monica James before, the All the Pretty Things series. I read the first two books and that was pretty messed up, but it was very well written and I really liked it. I was gonna pick up the spin-off of that series, Alex's book, but I don't think I'm ready to read about him because he is the villain in the first series. Another romance reader, Bea Maslunga, has been recommending dark romance books to me, and she did recommend Tilly Cole's books. I'm not sure I'm ready to read her Ripper one. I don't know what that one is. The anyway, this book that has the MC romance with the heroine who belonged to a cult. I don't know if I'm ready to read that, but I actually think I'm gonna like Lord of London Town because it's kind of like a mafia romance. So it's not too far out of my comfort zone. So I think that is the perfect choice for this box. So now that I have picked quite a lot of books for this readathon, I hope that I can read maybe 3 of them. And I'll call it a win if I read 3 of them. But if not, I'm still okay with it. I know that I won't be able to read as fast, but that's fine. And I also plan to continue to read these books even though the readathon is over. And we do have a couple of holidays during December. So I think that will give me a chance to just read all day, hopefully. So now let's move on to the rest of my TBR for December. So I did select a few more books that I plan to read in December that is beyond the readathon. So these books are, I think, very nostalgic to me. And I'll explain to you about it later. So the 2 books that I've read are actually 2 books that are own voices Filipino written books, and I'm personally picking these books to read because I'm really missing my family in the Philippines. We went to the Filipino grocery store a couple nights ago, and they were already playing a lot of Filipino Christmas songs. And one of the songs that I heard over the speakers was Sa Araw ng Pasko, and it really brought home that, you know, well, Christmas is a really big celebration in the Philippines. In fact, we start putting out decorations in October, sometimes in late September. And it's a very important holiday for us as well. And all of my family are there. So it's only the only people here with me is my husband and my mom. So it's pretty lonely for us. I mean, especially with social distancing, it's not that bad. We do live in the same house, so we can celebrate Christmas together. But my cousins that I grew up with, my other family, yeah, they're there. And I also want to give a shout out to my nephew, Fitzpatrick. I know you said you wanted a shout out from me, so shout out. And I miss you. Anyway, so I'm picking 2 books to read that really remind me of home. So the first book that I plan to read is Once Upon a Sunset by Tiff Marcelo. Tiff is another Filipino American author. This is an own voices book. This is actually a romantic fiction, so there is romance with HEA here, but this is for the most part women's fiction, and it involves a mother and a daughter, and they go back to the Philippines and discover their family. I got this arc from Tiff this year, and I still haven't read it, so I was just waiting for the perfect time to read this book. And I think the holidays is the perfect time to read, you know, summer summery beach during winter. So I plan to read this definitely before the year is over. So the next book that I have is Beginner's Guide to Love and Other Chemical Reactions by Six de los Reyes. This is another Own Voices Filipino book, and it's pretty short too. This is another romance class book, and actually I heard about this book on Eloisa James's Facebook group a few years ago when this came out, and she was talking about this book, and she was talking about the Filipino hot dogs on a stick with colorful marshmallows on top. That is a classic Filipino children's party food, and they usually stick it in like a banana stem stalk thing. So she said it's in this book. So I can't wait to read this. This has been on my TBR for years. So I think this is a time to read this book. The next book that I plan to read is another nostalgic read. This is just plain nostalgia because I'm going to be reading one of the out of print books from one of my favorite authors, and I picked Love Come to Me by Lisa Kleypas. I actually got this book this month, and look at that cover. It's pretty battered, but that's okay. I really was lucky to find a copy of this book, and since this is not available in digital, I will definitely be reading a physical book finally after a few years of just plain digital reading. So this is actually a historical romance set in America, and it's set in New England. So I really can't wait to read this. I haven't read this book yet. I hope it's not too old school because I know this book was published in the late 80s. I hope this book still holds up. Now, finally, the last book that I have for you is one of my favorite Gilded Age books, and this is actually going to be a reread, and the book is Lions and Lace by Megan McKinney. I'm going to show you the step back for this book. This is actually a double page step back. Yes. So I've actually read this book multiple times, and it's one of my favorite books. And let me show you my original copy of the book because you're going to be shocked. This is my original copy of Lions and Lace. The spine has definitely broken. The book has fallen apart. This actually survived multiple flights, multiple international flights. This used to be my security blanket. I would always bring this with me whenever I fly from the Philippines to LA until I stopped bringing it with me because it finally fell apart. So one of my favorite books. As you can tell, I actually purchased this as a used book already, so it didn't survive. But I don't want to let this go because this has a lot of memories. It's one of my favorite books. Oh my god, this book is falling apart. I think the step back actually fell. So, oh my god. And that's actually why I looked for another copy of this book because I need to have like at least a better looking copy. But if you haven't read this book, this is actually a Gilded Age romance. This is a arranged slash forced marriage romance between a society lady and a self-made man. So think Joanna Shupe. This book was actually published in 1992. So I've read this book multiple times, and I've actually reread this maybe in 2014 or 2015 on audio. So this one is available on audio as well. And I think this book still holds up. And if you want to read a grumpy hero, you have a grumpy hero in Trevor Sheridan. So those are the books that I plan to read in December. I'm not sure if I'm going to read all of them, but I will do my best to read as many books as I can for that month. Anyway, please let me know if you're participating in the Romance Takeover Readathon, and let me know what books you are planning to read in December. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in another video.